Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Brand Communications Leading in a Time of Crisis. So thank you so much for being here. A few housekeeping things before I introduce the panelists. The questions are public, not private, but your last name is not going to be shared. Please feel free to ask any questions. We will have a Q&A after hearing from each panelist, and you can do this on the right side of your screen. The webinar will be recorded and it's going to be available on demand afterward. We'll share a copy of it with everybody. And the slides are available for you to download as well. We'll be sharing them after the webinar as well. So my name is Madi Bullock, and I will be moderating the discussion today. And if you have any follow-up questions after the webinar, you can reach out to me on Twitter at @MatsBullock. So really quickly, the inspiration for this, because my focus is communications, I was interested in how our customers' communications have been impacted by COVID-19. And so I was surprised to see, if you see this side-by-side image here, I was surprised to see that just 2 months after, our norm was turned upside down for Weave users, the mobile app, the VoIP phone system, and text messaging, they were not only back to normal, but it had increased. And it made me think that, businesses have finally realized the importance of communication, consistent communication, and in developing long-lasting relationships with customers, especially during times of crisis. So I think that 2020 will prove to be a unique moment in time when customers will look to the businesses they trust to find stable ground. I know that that's what I did. And honestly, as it turned out, businesses were among the first to provide guidelines on how to proceed and how to navigate during these unprecedented changes as our government was figuring things out. So this webinar is dedicated to providing business owners actionable expert advice for your comm strategies during times of crisis. And we have a really well-balanced panel with valuable perspectives on the topic. And I am really excited to introduce them to you. Oh, I lost my media. Let me get it back. All right, so first we'll have Gabe, Michelle, and Joe. I want you guys to say hi, introduce yourselves.
Awesome. What's up, guys? Thank you so much for inviting me, Maddie. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Gabe Villamizar. You can find me there on Twitter at Gabe Villamizar. I am the global evangelist at LucidChart. And I'm really excited to be here. I've been at LucidChart for almost 4 years, actually 4 years next month. And it's been a great ride. So I've led the B2B enterprise marketing team for a while. And now I'm doing evangelist work, which is just spread the good word of LucidChart. So that's in a nutshell who I am. And I'm excited to be here for everybody who's watching live or if you're watching on demand. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Gabe.
Hi, I'm Michelle Suzuki. I'm VP of Marketing at Instructure. We sell education software. And I'm thrilled to be here. Gabe and Joe are amazing. And I love talking about brand and those kinds of things. So again, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle and Gabe and Maddie. Thanks for the invite as well. I'm Joe Martin. I'm the GM and VP of Marketing at CloudApp. I'm excited to be a part of this group. And definitely, love talking and being with all the other 3 people on here. So thanks for everyone for coming.
Thanks so much, guys. Gabe, we will start with you.
Awesome. Great. So Maddie, do you want to just kind of roll the slides as I go and talk about these things, right? Okay, great. So like I said, I'm with LucidChart, and we're the visual workspace for remote work teams. We help people see more, know more, do more, so they can understand their business, so they can, by combining diagramming, data visualization, collaboration, to ultimately really accelerate understanding and help our users innovate more. So we've been around for about 10 years. We have about 600 employees. Our main office is out of Silicon Slopes, Salt Lake City, or South Jordan, Utah. We have an office this year that we started before COVID in Melbourne, Australia. And then we also have our APAC office in Amsterdam. I'm sorry, our EMEA office in Amsterdam. So we're a global company, and we've had to really do a lot of interesting and new things for us as a company from every department. So that's a little bit about LucidChart. If you go to the next slide, Maddie, 100% of the Fortune 100, use LucidChart. 99% of the Fortune 500 uses, and about 92% of the Fortune 1000s use LucidChart. So whether you've heard of us or not, we all think visually. We all learn how to communicate, not in words, because we don't think in words, but we think in visuals. So I think everybody here in this panel could agree with that, as to like what LucidChart, the power that LucidChart can bring to not only your professional life, but also your personal life. So we've been around again for 10 years, and I want to share some insights as to like, what are a few things that you could do as a business owner, whether SMB or mid-market or enterprise, in regards to social media in times of communication. So if we go to the next slide here, I want to just touch on a few minutes as to like, okay, and these are questions that come to my way quite a bit. Okay, so there's so many social media channels out there right now. Then they all seem to be important. I think we can all agree, okay, what should I do and which one should I be on, right? So the answer that I say to that is choose 2 channels that you are really, really good at. Okay, you could be on Pinterest, you could be on Instagram, you can be on TikTok now, you can be on Twitter, you can be on Snapchat. I mean, Joe is Snapchatting every freaking day. I have to block it. Just kidding. But you see, there's a plethora of all these channels. But what you need to do ultimately in times of crisis is choose 2 that you're really, really good at or that you feel really comfortable and double down on those. And what I mean by double down is create a strategy, reinforce the mission, reinforce the vision, and create a dialogue. A lot of us use social media just to blast messages, just to promote. Social media, the name in it of itself is to be social. It's to start a dialogue, okay? And I know a few of you guys here in this panel are really good, maybe even better at me, at communicating through social media instead of just blasting messages every day, all day. For me, I've been focusing my game and a lot of LucidChart's game, okay, on Twitter and LinkedIn. Those are the channels that we see a lot of our users be actively engaged every single day or every week, and where we know that if we put messages on there, if we focus our energy and focus and choose the channels to say no to, right, then we could really capitalize and conquer those channels like never before. And anyway, any thoughts on the panel on this? Something that has resonated with you guys on like being more laser focused?
Yeah, you nailed it. Go where your audience is, right? Go where the leads are. Focus on the community, but also understand where, social over the last 5 years has gotten much more demand for like marketing qualified leads or revenue versus just being like a awareness play. So if you're not, blasting where you could potentially get leads for your business, then you're, wasting your time.
Awesome, Joe. So I love that. Whether it's organic or paid, it seems to be working. Depends on your business, on your vertical, but that's the key takeaway here. Because people say, Gabe, where should I create a Google business account? Should I create an Instagram account? I need to be everywhere and anywhere, because you hear that everywhere. Right? You need to be everywhere. But in times of crisis, you gotta just, you hear the saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none," and that's totally true when it comes to when you're in a crisis. But what are the top 2 channels and that work for you, and go all in? So that's tip number 1. Let's move on to the next slide. So what should you say on social media? Here's something else that comes up to me in regards to like, crisis mode. What should you be saying? I like to tell them, hey, follow the 80-20 rule. 80% of what should you be, that 80% of what you're tweeting, posting on LinkedIn, or writing about, or creating videos or a GIF about should be about not your product or market per se directly, okay? Meaning educate people, okay? So I like to tell people go to social media for 2 reasons. Number 1, they want to be educated. Number 2, they want to be entertained. Those are the top 2 types of content that do the best on social media. Now, if you can educate and entertain, you have something viral straight up. We have a set of videos called doggos, snakes, catos, all these crazy videos that have given us 300 million views on all social media platforms combined. I didn't even know what the freak was a doggo until I joined LucidChart. So if you don't know what a doggo is, if you type in Google or like YouTube doggo, our video shows up, and we teach people what is a doggo. Okay, so here we are entertaining people and we're educating them by sharing something what is LucidChart, and also educating them on what doggos are. So educating them and entertaining, okay, is the way to go, meaning that 80%. And then the 20%, that's when you can talk about, hey, we have a webinar. Hey, these are our new open store hours. Hey, this is the sale that's going on. Hey, this is our new leadership change, or this is our new the new rules of how we are open during COVID, or here's the new restrictions that are happening when you come to our store, etc. So 80-20 rule, I don't know, Michelle or Joe, I mean, do you guys, what are your thoughts on this? On like, do you guys see something similar around your brands, following some sort of like balance between talking about yourself versus talking about the market and something industry related?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the hardcore sale doesn't really work on social media very well. And I think that following this 80-20 rule is the perfect rule of thumb, because it should be something that really satisfies the need or the desire of your end user. So whatever's going to be interesting to them is going to be fascinating to us. And if you abide by that, you won't fail.
Great. No, I love that. And whether that's 70-30 for you, 80-20, shoot, maybe 50-50. I don't know what that it is for you, but you need to find that balance and what's best for you. Next slide, and then I'll pass it over to Michelle. This comes up quite a bit. Gabe, a lot of these messages come from an individual channel, an influencer like Michelle or Joe, Madi, or should this really come from our corporate channel? Again, that's up to you. If the social, if the thought leadership of an executive at your company hasn't been built, maybe it is a good time to consider, hey, maybe we should put the brand and the voice tied to an individual. We do business, specifically in B2B, right? People buy, even though it's B2B, people buy from an individual, from a person to person, even though it's B2B. So a message is most likely to be resonated, absorbed, and consumed if it's from a face versus a logo. Even though there's brand demand and brand recognition and brand awareness and loyalty, such as when you see an Apple logo or a Google, consider really just building the thought leadership of an individual in your company. For example, Dave Grohl, our president and COO, he was maybe she's not going to be happy I'm saying this, but he was anti-LinkedIn for the longest time. And in the first year and a half that I was at LucidChart, I'm like, Dave, you have to post on LinkedIn. You've built this amazing company here at LucidChart, and you need to tell the world how the heck you built this company that grew from 0 to 100 million in ARR now, and now we're a unicorn, and because you have awesome stories. It took me a year and a half, and now he's posting constantly on LinkedIn. It's the face, right, of LucidChart on LinkedIn specifically and other platforms. But think about that for a sec. And anyway, so those are a few tips, Madi, that I want to share specifically as social, as to like anybody who's viewing this, as to like hopefully those help a little bit.
Yeah, with that last one, Gabe, at Adobe, we would see a 10x engagement when we had put ad dollars behind a leader versus our brand, and it was cheaper. So we'd get higher engagement and it costs less money when we'd put money behind like our head of sales tweet about some announcement versus like at Adobe's, social account. So it's definitely, there's a lot of value there.
Wow. Well, maybe we should do that. We've kind of been focusing more on the organic side, but if you're telling me you're putting money behind it, see, I'm learning something new.
That was actually when I had money at Adobe. I don't have that type of money anymore.
Oh no, that's awesome. That's good. I'm gonna actually try that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks, no, Joe. Gabe, and I also think it comes across obviously more naturally, right? And so when you have someone posting something that would seem like very altruistic, very authentic content, that clearly resonates with everyone so much more. So that makes sense, Joe. That and it's pretty cool that you guys picked up on that and started doing that. All right, we will turn the time to Michelle. Michelle, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I love talking about the topic about keeping your brand promise in a time been a really interesting time. If you'll advance the slide. One of the products that we sell at Instructure is called Canvas. And I think a lot of people are very familiar with Canvas. Lots and lots of school districts for K-12 and lots of higher ed institutions use Canvas to do distance learning and digital learning in their classrooms. We have experienced a really huge uptick in the interest in the Canvas product. And sadly, COVID has been an opportunity for our company. I think it's a great benefit to us, but one of the challenges that we saw immediately was there were so many people who had no idea how to do distance learning, how to use a platform to do what they've been doing for decades sometimes as teachers, you know, teaching their classroom in person. Hi from Salt Lake City. I think there were lots of teachers and parents and educators who were responsible for quickly their school shut down. How do we teach kind of remotely? And so if you'll go to the next slide, one of the things that is really important to us at Instructure and at Canvas is being really loyal to the brand. And Maddie, can you advance that slide for me? We recognize that every interaction that we have either builds or destroys our brand equity. And I think in times like this, there's a question of, you know, do we really start going out there and sell? And is that kind of how we go to market and message? And instead, one of the things that we saw was there were lots and lots of challenges about how to use this, how to do distance learning. And so if you'll go to the next slide, one of the things that we stand for as a company is our commitment to help people grow from the first day of school to the last day of work. And so we knew that according to our brand promise and the mission of our company, if you'll go to the next slide, again, I'm tearing through these really quick. Yeah, giving our audience of people who were just now coming into Canvas, not just educators even, there were lots of yoga studios, interestingly, that started to use Canvas because they couldn't do in-person yoga instruction and they wanted to be able to stream a series of educational interactions, I think, with their audience. So we had people coming in and using for the first time. One of the things that we found most valuable and that our end users found most valuable was putting up kind of tutorials and enabling them with the content that was easy for us to put together. We already had an influencer program in our social media. We had people who are kind of education superstars. We had new people coming in who were yoga instructors and were using this. And so what we did was we had kind of user-generated content that we started putting up. We started to use a platform called Story Media. We have an incredible social media director named Mark Booth and a really amazing comms VP named Corey Edwards. And they put these programs together using Periscope and Story Media, user-generated content, live streams of us kind of bringing experts in of how we do ABC, or here are the top 5 tips and tricks for this. And so instead of really hardcore selling the product, what we were doing was really enabling people to use it better and be successful during a very, very, very difficult time. And we found that to be extraordinarily helpful. One of the things that we did was we created all of this content, but you know, if it just sits on your website and nobody comes to your website, then what good is it? So like Gabe was saying, meeting people where they prefer to consume content is vital. Our audience does pretty well on Facebook as far as instructors and teachers and students and parents. But for administrators and those kinds of folks, we find that Twitter works really well and LinkedIn is our best. So again, just going to the right places where all of the right audiences consume their content in their preferred method is how we had the most success and the most engagement from our audience. So this is just, I had to blur it out so we had some anonymity, but just a quick tweet that we got from somebody showing how those modules actually helped to close new business. We weren't out like proactively selling, but really helping our audience understand how to cope and what to do, and really engaging with them is what really made a huge amount of difference. And it really does impact the bottom line. that's what I've got.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. Joe, you have got the floor. Tell us how you have navigated this crazy time with your communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the first slide, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, so first of all, I zagged a little bit, and I wanted to talk briefly about CloudApp, but then also go in more on our internal, how we kind of took care of our employees, and my team specifically. Awesome. So first of all, with CloudApp, so March 11th is my anniversary. I was out to dinner with my wife, and things were obviously escalating pretty quickly. And that was the night that COVID got a face with Rudy Gobert from the Jazz, and then also Tom Hanks. And that's kind of when everything went crazy. So that night, after we got back from dinner, I emailed all my team and sent them Slack notes and said, hey, we need to get like 15 pieces of remote content out in the next like 3 days. And my entire team mobilized, and we all kind of wrote pieces ourselves. We had some external writers put some stuff together as well. And we set up this guide page on our site. So CloudApp, if people aren't aware, is go back. It's kind of like Zoom is kind of like for synchronous, and CloudApp is for asynchronous. So you can record yourself talking to a document or something with video. You can take screenshots and annotate on things. So it's a very remote work tool. So we set up this guide. We put out all these blog posts. We put up all these use case pages on our site, and within a month, those pieces of content had over 10,000 views on them. And we were able to get indexed for a lot of different stuff with remote work, and provide a lot of value in that space. So that's pretty cool to kind of see the team really mobilize quickly, get that up, and see some results from it. We also issued an immediate discount to our existing community and just said, hey, here's 50% off Pro for the next few months. And then obviously our sales team reached out to our customers, and we've been working with a lot of customers that need some help, and just really focusing on keeping our customers happy, avoiding churn, and really kind of being strong during this time. And then also CloudApp is always free to students and educators, and has an extreme discount for nonprofits. So we made sure to reiterate that to our community, like, hey, teachers, we know you suddenly have to do everything digitally. Remember, CloudApp is free. Our premium product is free for you. And we saw like a 4 to 5x growth in usage of CloudApp during this time. You can go ahead and go next. So internally, there was obviously a lot of chaos. We were mostly a remote work company anyway. We were about 50% remote, pretty small, around 30 employees. But still a big change. My team did work next to me in an office. And so the first thing I did with my team was say, hey, we're going to have daily stand-ups every morning, just 15 minutes, just to get everyone connected and kind of have that, informal conversations that you'd normally have in your first 15 minutes of work. You walk into the office, you say hi to people, you go get your snack or whatever from the snack room or whatever, and then connect. So we did that. And then we made sure that we had our one-on-ones set up so we could connect weekly as a team, and be able to communicate frequently and make sure everyone is feeling good about what they're working on. But also, this is working from home during a pandemic, which none of us have experienced. So making sure, everyone is feeling good about how they're working. Obviously using async video, CloudApp. This top image is an example of that. I did some inception on my slides, where I took a video and took an image of this slide deck. But we also did some fun stuff so far, and we'll keep doing fun stuff. But we did this working from home scavenger hunt, which was pretty fun, where we had people had to find 10 items. They had 5 minutes to find all these items, and bring them to the Zoom room. And then whoever won, got basically pride, but but it was pretty fun to kind of see what people's panic buys were, what DVD people had in their, from the 80s people had in their house still, and just random things like that. So it's finding ways to connect frequently and really try and facilitate that move to, hey, we're all suddenly working at home now. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Obviously enabling the right tool set. We make sure to provide our employees with tools that are helpful. Asana is kind of task management, Zoom for real-time conferencing, Slack for kind of those informal conversations. And then I mentioned, Weave, LucidChart, G Suite, and CloudApp, Jira, lots of other tools that are really helpful while you're working remotely, trying to collaborate well and connect frequently. Go ahead and go to the next one. And then also, we follow kind of the OKR model set up by Google, which is kind of the objective key results. So we all kind of sign up for these OKRs. We all kind of know what the goals of the company are, and our goals align with those top level OKRs. So everyone knows the goals, everyone knows how to accomplish those goals. And then we have bi-weekly all hands where we reiterate the messaging of how people should be talking about CloudApp on social media, how they should talk about it with their friends and family, really provide our team with elevator pitches to really help them know how to communicate and kind of how we're taking stances on everything that's gone on this year, which there's been a lot. So those are a few of the things that we've done as a company and as leaders of our teams, and really trying to empower our employees to feel comfortable and confident that we're doing all that we can to keep them progressing during this time, and we'll all kind of come out of it better.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. All of you, thank you so much. We are going to have some time for Q&A. The first question I have, and this really goes to everyone, is when crisis strikes, and think as well that we have a lot of audience members here that own a small to medium-sized business. They just went through the entire lockdown just like the rest of us did. When crisis strikes, what are the most important channels to use to reach every single customer? And so for Gabe, Michelle, and Joe, each of you, what would be your preferred first line of communication? And what were you able to utilize when this all started? So Michelle, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, as I'm considering smaller businesses, I have been really surprised actually as a marketer that I haven't gotten more text communication from my local vendors, right? My dentist, nothing. My
SMS, like text messages?
Yeah, text messages, yeah.
And
sure, I've been surprised that nobody has really reached out and said, hey, it's safe to go to the dentist and here's what you need to do, or here, at the salon where, whatever. It just has been really surprising to me that I haven't gotten communication, because I know there are challenges, but there are also opportunities there. So for me, I think texting just as a consumer, email, of course, is always really great for me as well. So.
Michelle, I will say that your dentist probably doesn't use Weave.
Oh, snap. I agree. I agree with what Michelle said.
What was that, Gabe?
Yeah, I agree with what Michelle said. Like text, it's I think it's at least I'm on the same boat. Even like I don't get enough text, but I think I pay more attention to my text if it's from an SMB than more than any other channel. Like my email is flooded. It's like I don't even have an inbox. I haven't seen an inbox 0 in years. I mean, I don't even keep up with it. But for LucidChart, I know email was pretty big for us, and so we have over 20 million users worldwide, and email was big for us, constant email, and so that's what's worked for us. But I like the idea of text. a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's you got to combine, like if we're talking restaurants and S&Bs and stuff that are local to the neighborhood, it's like a combination of all of those things, like everything digital, which a lot of people don't know about, texting and email lists and that type of stuff. But if I think about like where we went to go support our local business for like restaurants and stuff, it was people that I was on their email list. Like there's this Utah hot dog place that everybody knows, called J Dogs, and they sent out emails and were like, hey, dine-in's not an option, but come pick up the J Dogs and grill them at your house, and you can buy this, $30 family pack or whatever, and it comes with everything you need. So it's kind of cool to see, like, there was a lot of misses, but there's a lot of cool innovation of people that were like really trying to connect with everybody during this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Joe, you mentioned that your team created a lot of content, right, to be able to go out. How important is that for, a business owner to at least have something create? I mean, what would you say to someone who doesn't have a content team?
Well, I didn't always have a content team, and I'm still the content team. Like I write a lot. So I think it's really like just the prospect of just doing it type of deal. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be SEO focused, like just something out there, even like a message from you. We all got tired of like, okay, I don't need to hear from the CEO of Petco about how they feel about COVID. Like I got 6,000 emails from the CEO of X business, but put up a blog post, put out a tweet, maybe don't hit your email list if you're seeing every single person doing the same thing. But like we did podcasts, we did webinars, we did this content, and it's a wave, right? Like if you look at Google searches for remote, it went like this, and now it's like this. So you got to like catch that wave. And if you're like just now doing stuff about remote or COVID, like it's old news. I mean, it's still very much a part of our lives, but
it'll be harder for sure. But yeah, it is.
You got to like find those trends and just be like, you know what? I'm going to write 200 words on my thoughts about remote work. And I saw one guy who just went nuts on remote work on Twitter, and now he is like the go-to remote work guy.
Oh wow!
And all of his tweets and he has a remote work company. All of his tweets are getting like,
I know who you're talking about. He's always posting companies when companies go remote.
Yeah. So he's getting like 100, 300 engagements on Twitter every single tweet he does, because he just like saw the moment and jumped in on it, and it made sense for his business. Obviously, if you're like a hair salon, you're not going to be writing about, the same stuff as him. But finding where you fit into that niche and really just being, really aggressive in that moment is really helpful.
And I do think too, like for example, if you're a hair salon, making an Instagram story is just going to be super easy. It doesn't have to have the perfect lighting, but you're still communicating and sharing the right kinds of information with your audience. I don't think you need to have a big, gigantic team if you're just, speaking from the heart and showing what's happening and informing your audience.
Yeah, that's
exactly. It can be an Instagram story when Joe's, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but when you say creating content, it could be a GIF, it could be a 2-minute video, it could be a story, it could be 200 words in a LinkedIn post, it could be a 400, 800 word article. I mean, English is my second language. It takes me a few days, if not weeks, to write a blog post. So if I'm going to focus on that, I could be miserable, or I can focus on what I'm really good at, which is maybe like LinkedIn posts. So find the medium that works best for you. And when we say content, yeah, sometimes you are your own content person. Like, hey, but then you can become a thought leader if you ride that wave. If you're the dentist, if you're the hair salon, if you're the chiropractor, and you kind of come out with that content before anybody else does, you can really capitalize on the audience and the attention right when that wave happens. And there's multiple waves happening as we speak. It's not just the remote work one, but you got to be paying attention.
And
not just yeah, anyway.
And if we've, to that point, Michelle's point, if we've learned anything from this moment too, it's like my kids are joining me on Zoom calls. Like nothing is perfect, right? I have shorts on right now. Like I'm not like wearing, what I'd normally wear to the office. We're all kind of in this strange situation. So I think there's real authenticity to Michelle, like, jumping on Instagram stories. Like it doesn't need to be perfect. It's more about only 20% of people are actually creating content and 80% are consuming it. So you just got to jump in on being the person who's actually creating it. And that really endears, whoever your community is to you. It's the authenticity more than the perfection.
Yeah, and I think that speaks honestly to the topic of this entire webinar, which is leading in a time of crisis. If you do take advantage of those opportunities to actually reach your customers and your audience in the best way that they can receive that communication, you become a lifesaver for them, and so important. There are, I won't name the businesses, but there were a few that, for me, that were keeping me informed because, I understood, okay, if this business is, if this is how their schedule is going now, and if these are the protocols they're taking, I trust this, and this is something that I'm going to expect from other companies that I'm, a customer of. I'm also curious, you guys, with what we've gone through this wave. Let's say there's a next crazy wave or something else crazy is going to happen. It's 2020, and that
6 months left.
Nothing will surprise me anymore. What would you say would be protocols to have in place? One thing that Weave has been really, really beneficial for is, the two-way texting. We've been able to do digital wellness forms for the different healthcare providers that use us. And Joe, like you were saying, to have kind of a more internal communications plan, we use our team chat feature. So we have these protocols that are kind of in place, but as far as gearing it toward communication, both internally and externally, what have you learned from this crazy past 6-7 months? I guess it's shorter than that, but what have you learned that you would apply now and perfect going into the future? What kind of things are you planning to have in place, and what would you suggest that other companies do?
So for me, it's I feel like I have a little bit of a knowledge base now, kind of leading through crisis. Certainly there'll be more crises in the future, and probably not exactly the same as this one, but just having a knowledge base of like, okay, we did some stuff worked, some stuff didn't, but we did it, and we feel pretty good about the result. I think I probably would have done a few things differently. I think we went really hard on like long form content for our site, kind of seeing it as an opportunity for future growth. But I probably would have tried to communicate a little more one-to-one or one-to-many, but on like our social communities where we mostly kind of fed the content engine versus like putting out, the social type pieces like Gabe mentioned a while back.
That's spot on. Similar, same lines as Joe. I would say you can never move quick enough.
Yeah.
In this day and age, the fast can beat the big and the biggest. It's not who's the biggest, who's the tallest. It's who's the quickest, who's the most agile, who can adapt the fastest, who can pivot the fastest, who can transform themselves or their companies or services the fastest. So I think this is hopefully taught us as companies, as leaders, as product leaders or marketing leaders or sales or business owners to transform yourself. How fast can you transform yourself? Can you transform yourself in the next wave faster than you did wave one, V1, right? So when V2, V3, V4 come, is this going to be a pain like, oh, not again? Or are you going to take advantage of a crisis and move faster? I think that's one thing that we've learned at LucidChart is like, how fast can we move in a digital world where we're all thousands and hundreds of thousands of miles away from each other in a 50-person marketing team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really proud. So before I was with CloudApp, I was at Adobe for over 7 years, and I was really proud to see like how the massive companies moved fast as well. Like they were actually leaders in it. Like Facebook canceled F8, and Apple canceled one of their events. And it was kind of funny. You saw like a tiered system. Like it was Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and Google, which are kind of like, you know, the largest top tier. And then after that, it was like Adobe, Salesforce, you know, others. And then after that, it was like Atlassian, Zendesk, you know, lots of the Asana and other companies. But I've talked with a lot of people internally at Adobe and was like, hey, what were those meetings like? And they're like, oh, you know, it was great. Like we had a really small group and we're like, okay, this is what we're doing. And they distributed to everyone and everyone kind of just went with it. And it's insane to think of like moving 100,000 people to remote work and kind of like trying to support them. But was really cool to see how these massive companies who normally move really slow, right, were able to move so fast and kind of get their employees what they needed.
Yeah.
I think the one piece of advice that I have for this audience in particular is to not ghost your customers, right? They love you and they follow you for a reason. And I've seen so many small businesses just like disappear, right? They've been closed, whatever. I'll give a big shout out to, of course, I really love baked goods. You can see my chubby cheeks. There is a vendor here in the Salt Lake City area called Donut Boy. And they actually had somebody in their family fall ill with COVID. So they shut the business down for 2 weeks. And they were explicit on Instagram of like, it's not any of our workers, but it's somebody close enough. And to protect everybody's safety, this is what's happening. But they kept the communications up while they were closed and talked about the new flavors that were coming and about all of these things. And they just did not disappear. And for me, that just increased my my kind of loyalty to them in that they wanted to keep communication and they were being super honest. It was a really, I'm sure it felt really risky for them to be that open. But I applaud that. And I think that you just really, really, really need to stay in communication. Even if you're closed, tell them what's happening. Tell them how you're making improvements. Tell them what's going to be coming when everything gets
back into the and there was a question earlier about, you know, what if I send out that text message or that email and someone unsubscribes, and that's, you know, can be an asset having a newsletter group or whatever. I think hopefully you have some past data on that. But I think in times like this, to Michelle's point, like people just want to hear from you. Like, you know, my family wanted to support like restaurants and like do things that we could help small businesses. And so we basically, I mentioned this earlier, like we went to the ones that we were on email lists for, and we're like, hey, these people are connecting with me. I want to support them to make sure they don't have to close their doors and like fire their entire. So I think you take that risk, and if you know you lose half your people from a text message, then you'd be like, okay, text was a terrible idea. Oops. But maybe you go email or maybe you go social with the next one. So it's kind of like
try it. You won't know on the
trial and error, right?
Exactly. You won't know until you try it. But take baby steps. You know, think macro, but act micro.
Right. Well, and there was a question in the sidebar. I know you answered it, Gabe, but someone asked, how do you go about deciding which 2 social media channels to focus on? I know for Weave specifically, Facebook and LinkedIn perform the best for us. I think that that's where most of our customers are. But what would you suggest to a business owner? How would they be able to go and find out where their customers are, which social platforms to use?
Yeah, I mean, I just answered the question. I'd love to hear from Michelle and Joe, but what I would say is like, it's a combination of which platforms are you really good at already, so there's not a learning curve, and also going, like Michelle was saying, and like I mentioned, going to where your platforms go into where your customers, the platforms where your customers are, even if you're not good at those platforms, learn them. There's YouTube, there's Google, there's guides, there's content out there you can learn. Even though TikTok scares the crap out of a lot of us, then there's ways you can learn how to use them, right? So if 80% of your customer base is on TikTok, shoot, learn it. Like, just go there, right? And then how can you find out if they're there? Their tools, I don't know about if TikTok is trackable yet, but I know BuzzSumo, Sprout Social, Hootsuite, TweetDeck can tell you where their voice is to a degree. And then if they're on those platforms, choose two. Again, if you try to be on everywhere and anywhere, you're going to spread too thin. And I'm assuming if there's a lot of SMBs and individual business owners or sole proprietorships, you can't be everywhere, anywhere. You can't say like, I'm going to be on social 24/7. So choose one or two and go all in, kind of to give, like Michelle was saying, that donut experience of like, hey, this is what's happening. Her loyalty increased so much because they're vulnerable, not because they're focusing on trying to be vulnerable on every platform. I don't know. What do you guys think? How do you identify?
Yeah. I mean, we fit kind of with you, Gabe. Like our company's not on Instagram. I mean, we are like once every 6 months, because Instagram to us is like a recruiting tool. It's not like going to actively connect us. Company culture. It's not going to actively commit us to our community. And, we just don't have the team resources to really put effort there. So it's Twitter and LinkedIn to kind of mostly support the blog, and then YouTube because we're kind of a video tool. So like every blog post you see on CloudApp has a 60-second vlog about the blog that we use CloudApp to record insights about the blog, and we put it up on YouTube. So, but that's based off of lots of understanding about our audience, knowing where the best hits we can get with organic are, since we don't really have a paid budget, and really putting effort into those things. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, I am a huge believer in going where your audience is, and I think like they mentioned, like BuzzSumo, there are ways for you to go and find out. I think you can also search around and see what your competitors are doing. If you have direct competitors in your space and they're having a lot of traction on Instagram, you might want to go and just try it out. But meeting your audience where they live is the most important thing.
And there's a time to imitate and there's a time to innovate. So if you feel like
moment right there.
Yeah, see, well, you did the soundbite earlier, so I had to get my own in there, but if you don't feel like social very well, find a competitor like Michelle said, or find an influencer or whoever else is in your space, find out what they're doing and put your own flair on it. But you can create your own content that has a similar strategy if you're not comfortable with kind of innovating and coming up with your own ideas.
Yeah, thank you. And the recent question kind of play into this one, but this last question here, and if anyone else has any other questions, please get them in really, really quickly. We have about 3 or 4 more minutes. But what kind of challenges are you facing right now in the face of the lockdown and easing up and maybe locking down again? Michelle, let's start with you.
Yeah, like I said, the virus has actually been a real benefit, I think, to our business, which is unfortunate, kind of because it's such a tragedy. But it is requiring people to learn in different ways, and not just in schools, but also yoga studios and beauty schools and those kinds of things. So, I think one of the challenges is I've got a pretty good sized team, and I think that really understanding the concerns that my team has and how they work and when we go back and all of those kinds of things is a top concern. The other thing is we want to make sure our audience remains really educated and understands how they can leverage the platform better. And so, giving them what they need and satisfying that and helping them be successful is what we're all about. And it's harder to do when you're not able to meet face to face and those kinds of things. So working extra hard to really understand that is one of the big challenges that we face right now.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that. Joe or Gabe, do you have any insight?
What's the question again? Sorry.
So the question is, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now? And in the face of the lockdown and also easing up and maybe locking down again?
I think our biggest challenge is just not really knowing what is going to, go on in the future. And it's kind of dragging on, right? So we all kind of imagine a hybrid in the future where we're all learning how to work remotely. So maybe we're not always in the office, but there's also like an advantage to having that face-to-face time with, if you're an office worker, it's colleagues, or if you're, we mentioned like SMBs, like hair salon or dentists or, whoever, having that face-to-face time where it's feels a little bit more normal. People aren't having to wear masks and, social distance and those types of things. So I think for us, it's like really just embracing that it's kind of weird for everyone. My kids are joining my Zoom calls and dogs are barking in the background, and there's construction when you're on calls, and like everyone's kind of just dealing the way it is. So just making the best of it and really having a strategy for it, but also flexible and not totally like we're going all in on this one thing, because that may quickly change.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Along the same lines as Joe, even though I'm a millennial, I love face-to-face communication. Things can just move so quicker. Like I can just get up, go to somebody's desk, interrupt them whether they like it or not, and say, hey, let's add this insight tag pixel that's going to help us find our website demographic. And then bam, they don't put me in Q. They don't put me in freaking Jira or Confluent. They just give me the information right there, right? That's something I think that internal comms, I think that we're evolving and getting used to, right? Some of our leaders were never in Slack, ever. They're email 100%. Now they're Slack lovers. They're always on this messaging platform called Slack, if you didn't know what Slack means. So I think adapting to internal communications, I think is something that we've had to kind of learn. It's a new learning and getting that muscle strengthened. Anyway, and echoing similar to what Michelle said and Joe said. So anyway, those are some thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, all three of you, thank you so much for joining today. We are out of time, but this has been super insightful. I know that everyone that has joined has had a great time, because I had a great time. Thank you so much for sharing everything. Do you guys have any last words or any last pieces of advice?
Gabe and Michelle are my heroes, and Madi too. So
yeah, we love you guys. Thanks for joining us. That's it. And that's all.
But we'll have to do an in-person lunch when this is all gone.
Craig, Mary, Corin, good comments. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks for the comments, everyone.
I want to reiterate that this webinar is being recorded. It is available on demand after the fact. We will be sending all the registrants the on-demand version. The slides are also available to download, and we'll be sharing them after the webinar as well. And I hope you all have a great day.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.